today, Lesson 7. We're going to start this lesson with a couple of exercises that go over some familiar ground. Exercise 71 is designed to help you practice the thumb-under technique that you first met in Lesson 6. The piece is by no means easy, so you may like to begin by practicing each hand separately before you try playing hands together. As you practice, make certain you follow exactly the fingering written above the notes. And, as always, try to keep an even speed. It's much better to play the whole exercise slowly than to play some of it quickly and then slow down at the difficult bits. A closer look at the music reveals that the notes in the bass clef jump about quite a lot. For example, in the first bar you start with the fifth finger of your left hand on the C below middle C, while in bar 2 your thumb plays the E above middle C. Fortunately, the rest at the end of the first bar gives you plenty of time to move your hand up the keyboard. And this applies to the remainder of the exercise too. Each time you come to a rest, check whether you need to move your hand, ready for the next set of notes. Here's exercise 71 played through for you. Exercise 72 on page 74 takes in some of the chords you've been learning. Again, watch the fingering in the left hand very carefully, especially when you come to the quavers in the second half of the exercise. Now, turn to page 75 of your Lesson 7 booklet and take a look at what are called tied notes. As you can see from the examples in front of you, tied notes are two notes of the same pitch, two Cs for instance, linked by a curved line known as a tie. When two notes are tied in this way, they effectively become a single note of a longer time value. In other words, you don't actually play the second note, you simply add it to the first. And this makes it possible to have a wider variety of rhythms than will be the case using single notes on their own. If the principle sounds a bit confusing, don't worry, you'll quickly get the idea as you hear the examples on page 75 being played. In example A, two minims are tied together. Each minim is worth 2 beats, so the two minims together make a single sound lasting 4 beats, the same as a semibreve. Listen carefully. 1, 2, 3, 4. In example B, a minim is tied to a crotchet. This gives you 2 beats for the minim plus 1 beat for the crotchet, a total of 3 beats altogether. 1, 2, 3. In example C, 2 crotchets are tied together to make a single sound lasting 2 beats, the equivalent of 1 minim. 1, 2, Ties rarely come into their own when they're stretched across between one bar and another to create extra time values. You can see how this works in examples D and E. In example D, tying two dotted minims together produces a single sound that lasts a total of 6 beats, 2 whole bars in 3/4 time. Likewise, the semibreve and crotchet in example E add up to a total of 5 beats in all. Exercise 73 will give you plenty of practice with notes tied from bar to bar. As it's played through for you now, follow the music on pages 76 and 77 and listen to the effect the tied notes have on the rhythm. Page 78 of your lesson booklet shows what happens when quavers are tied. The principle is exactly the same as for the other notes. The notes that are tied must be next to each other, and they must be of the same pitch. But in this case, because we're dealing with quavers, we have to think in terms of half beats rather than whole beats. Following this rule, a minim and a quaver tied together produce a single sound lasting 2½ beats, or if you like, 5 half beats. In the same way, a crotchet and a quaver add up to 1½ beats, or 3 half beats. Let's take a look at example F. You'll notice that the C lasts for the first 2 beats and the first half of the third beat. Then the D comes in on the second half of the third beat. Listen how this sounds with the beats counted out loud. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Now hear example G, in which the first C lasts for 1½ beats. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. In example H, the first quaver isn't tied, but the second one is, to the crotchet that follows. Listen. 1 and 2, 3, 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, here's example I, which shows what happens when a quaver is tied from one bar to the next. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. Now, exercise 74, which puts what you've just been learning into practice. The exercise also includes a new chord, E minor, that you haven't met before, but which we'll be practicing in a slightly different guise towards the end of the lesson. Here, it consists of B, E the root note, and G. Just take it in your stride, after listening to the exercise which we'll play through now. everything you've played has been on the white part of the keyboard. Now it's time to look at how the black keys fit in. Try playing a series of white and black keys consecutively running up the keyboard. For example, D, then the black key between D and E, then F, then the black key between F and G, and so on. As you do so, listen carefully, and you'll notice that the sounds rise in pitch in equal steps. In other words, the difference in pitch between D and the black key to the right is the same as the difference between that black key and the next white note, E. In music, these steps are called semitones. So the difference in pitch between a white key and the black key next to it is one semitone. And the difference between two white keys separated by a black key is two semitones. That's to say, a whole tone. Ah, you ask, but why aren't there black keys between E and F, or between B and C? The answer is that these pairs of notes are only a semitone apart, so there isn't room to squeeze black keys between them. And in case you're thinking it'd be a lot simpler to have all the keys the same size and colour, the simple answer is that it would make the keyboard so long you wouldn't be able to reach half the notes. The diagram at the top of page 80 should help you make sense of it all, so study it carefully before going any further. The important thing to remember at this stage is that each black key is halfway in pitch between the white keys to either side. In other words, it's a semitone higher than the white key before it, and a semitone lower than the white key after it. When it comes to naming the black keys, they take their names from the white keys next to them. The black key above C, that is between C and D, is called C sharp. Sharp means that it's a semitone higher than its name note. In the same way, the black key above D is called D sharp, the one above F is called F sharp, and so on. In written music, we represent these sharp notes with a sign like a piece of railway track. And every time you see this sign on the stave, you know that the note which follows corresponds not to the usual white key, but to the black key above it on the keyboard. You can see how this works in the diagram at the top of page 81, which uses F sharp as an example. Exercises 75 and 76 are designed to give you lots of practice playing F sharp. But before you begin, there's one other very important point to remember. The effect of a sharp sign lasts for a whole bar, so if one note is made sharp, then so are any others in the same bar which occupy the same line or space on the stave. For an example of this, look at the first bar of exercise 75. The third quaver along is F sharp, but so too is the seventh, marked in the book by a red dot. The bar line then cancels the sharp, so the sharp sign has to be repeated again at the start of the second bar. Although there's only one sharp sign in each bar, all the Fs in exercises 75 and 76 are sharp. Here's exercise 75 for the right hand. And now for the left hand, exercise 76. The practice piece for this lesson is a lively, up-tempo number called Calamity Jane. Let's hear it played through in full. You have to be relaxed and confident before you can play a lively piece like this successfully. So practice each hand separately first, making sure you follow the fingering exactly as it's shown. You may find it helps to play along with the backing using just your right hand before you put the two hands together. If you look at the music, you'll notice that the bass clef contains two notes you haven't played before, the G on the bottom line and the A in the space above it. If you're unsure where to find these notes on the keyboard, look back to the illustration at the top of page 81. The number 8, written in the first bar of the music, means you have to wait for 8 bars of orchestral backing before you start playing yourself. The best way to make sure you come in at exactly the right moment is to count. After the first 4, first 2, 3, 4, second 2, 3, 4, third 2, 3, 4, fourth 2, 3, 4, fifth 2, 3, 4, sixth 2, 3, 4, seventh 2, 3, 4, eighth 2, 3, 4, play. Another way of approaching it is to hear where you come in. The rising notes in the bass clef in bar 8 give you your cue. Listen again. Now here's Calamity Jane without the keyboard part. When you're playing along, watch out for the repeat sign that takes you back to the point where you come in. Finally, let's have a look at some more new chords. You'll find them on page 84 of the booklet. First, G major, D, the root note G, and B. Try it with the right hand. And with the left. Now, E minor, which you first met in exercise 74. As before, it consists of E, G, and B, but this time the root note, E, is the bottom note of the chord. Try it first with the right hand, and with the left. We've met the A minor chord before, but here it's in a different position to the one you're used to. The notes are still the same, A, C, and E, but they're arranged differently, with the root note in the middle. Here's the right hand, and the left. Lastly, a chord with the new note F sharp. D major is made up of the root note D, F sharp, and A. Here's the right hand, and the left. Exercise 77 uses all these chords in sequence. And now play the rhythmic variations. Variation 1. The second variation in 3/4 time. The third variation, quavers in 4/4 time. And the fourth and last variation, quavers in 3/4 time. By the way, as in previous lessons, don't forget to practice with your left hand as well as your right.